you want to just tap your microphone and make sure? Yeah.
Also, I have a flash drive with an audio file I would like to play.
Okay.
Can that work as well, or is that?
Can you share that with me as well? And
yeah, it may not be necessary, but
okay.
Sure, I can if you want me to.
If it can pick up from your microphone, here's the volume right here, and so maybe they'll just be able to hear it through.
Okay.
Through your microphone and that.
Okay. Is there a flash drive spot?
Yeah.
Plug it in.
The easiest way would probably be back in the back. Here it is. Or you can do that and then go to Chrome. Or
Oh, I'm going to Chrome.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
Perfect. Yeah, and if you have problems, let me know. So okay, I think everything should be set up. So I'll let you go ahead and go.
Okay, awesome. So you guys do, hi everybody, I'm Tyson. So you guys do, is it like a weekly something you're supposed to film? Is that what you do? That's awesome. I read a book recently, and it told a story about a photography class, and the professor did an experiment on his class, which is so fun to do. And what he did is he divided the class in half. So he's just like, okay, you people on this side, you're going to be grading rubric 1, and you're going to be grading rubric 2. And then what he did is he said, okay, the first group, you're going to produce one amazing photo this semester. So you're going to be graded on only one photo. And I just want you to put all of your heart and soul and time and effort into making this one awesome photograph. It's going to be so good. And that's what you'll be graded on. So that was one half of the class. The other half of the class, he said, you're going to be graded on volume. So 100 photos is an A plus, 90, 80, 70, etc. So that was how they were graded. And when he got the photos back at the end of the semester, every time the people that did in group 2, in study group 2 or whatever, that did more photos, that did the most volume, their photos were way better than the kids that spent all of their time trying to make one photo perfect. So just spending a lot of time doing it and making stuff, even if it's kind of junky at first, like if you feel it's junky at first, just making things over and over and over again, doing it over and over and over again, really improves the speed of your output and the quality of your output, which, as you know, if you're a working creative, you've got to have good quality and speed. So that's an awesome assignment. Oh boy. Okay. So did you guys just get done talking about audio, or you're about to start? You just got done. Okay.
Yeah, just the basics.
Okay. Cool.
Nothing.
So I have some stuff planned to talk about, and I'll move through it. And but if you guys have questions about any of this stuff, ask me. I think we're going to do questions. Have some time for questions at the end. But also, if you have questions about things that I didn't talk about, we can talk about those as well. I just kind of picked some grab bag topics that I was excited about. So like Matthew said, I compose for media. I'm working on a really cool video game project right now that I'm way excited about, launching this next month. It's going to be great. But I love working with game developers and filmmakers. It's just a ton of fun what we do as creatives. So we're going to talk about sound. I believe that it can make or break your project. So I'm going to cover, these are just like the 4 basic areas that I'm going to talk about today. Getting great audio into your project, super important. Working with the composer, balancing your music and sound, and then I have some final things that I just want to say. So getting great sound into your project. The first thing that I want to stress is that there's no excuse for bad audio. It's just the standards are so high nowadays, but for musicians and for video people and just for everyone. Everyone has so much access to so much high quality technology that's affordable that there's really no excuse not to have great audio. And so you need to really make sure that your audio is awesome. And we're going to talk about, I'll just mention some ideas that I think can help with that. Maybe some of these ideas you've heard before. Hopefully some of them will also be new. So bad audio will kill your project. I heard a filmmaker talking about this idea, so I feel confident saying it, that if you have a project that has like kind of crummy visuals, like maybe the camera's a little grainy or something, like the shooting isn't as great, but the audio is just really crisp and clear and professional, then people could interpret it like, oh, that's kind of like this cool artistic move that they did with the filming of the thing. But if you flip that and you have like really amazing HD video and the audio sounds kind of crummy, it's really going to kill a project. Perfect story about that. I went to a film festival last year and I watched this film and it was just like awesome. It was stunning how it started. I thought anyway. Just the camera angles were way cool. The picture quality was just, it was great. They had great they must have had great cameras. And they started off with just this killer track. It was, I talked to the filmmakers afterward. It was some local band here in Salt Lake area, but it just sounded so good. Like the track was, it was just the coolest opening to a video. It was just like, gotcha. And so this awesome track is playing, and you know, people are walking in, and just the whole thing is coming together. And then like the initial people in this short film meet up, and the dialogue starts, and it was just like, I was just like flying toward this amazing scene, and then all of a sudden, bam, I hit the glass, and I was like a bird flying into a window, and I was just like crushed because the audio was just really stinky. It's just like, and they said afterward, they explained what happened is that in the building they were filming in, there was like these air intake systems that were creating all sorts of noise. But regardless of the reason, and so they tried all these things to clean out the audio, and it just sounded kind of crummy. So it really brought, like, it had this super amazing start, and then it just took a real quick dive. It was kind of sad. So I know it's not the most preferable thing, but it probably would have been better for them to like do some ADR or something to clean that up. Or buy some expensive plugins that could clean it up real nice. Anyway, so that's my soapbox on that. There's no excuses. There's tons of resources to have great sounding audio. I'm going to talk about Soundly in just a second. Pond 5, have you guys heard of Pond 5, Premium Beat, Audio Jungle, those sort of things? Raise your hand if you've heard of those. A couple people. So those are royalty-free websites where you can pay very little money to get music, to get a license for music to go into your project. So you can find free music out there. You have a larger selection with some of these sites. There's more expensive sync licensing websites, but these are kind of your entry-level ones, and there's still really good quality stuff on there, and it's fairly inexpensive. So those are good resources to know about when you're looking for music. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention is it's just great, just like with anything that you're working on as a filmmaker, it's really important, I feel, to spend time getting used to audio, working with audio, getting that on your radar, and we'll talk about that more. Oh yeah, and then what message does your audio send? So if you have really bad audio in your film, in this day and age where there's no excuse to have bad audio, what kind of message are you sending? You know, was it just not that important to you? Were you being lazy? Like, you know, your film is going to speak volumes about you, and so you want to present yourself in the best possible light. So hopefully I've beat that over the head enough. Okay. Oh, I'm really excited to talk about this idea. So creating a sound spreadsheet, this is a really cool idea. I worked on this video game at the beginning of the year, and it was a fighting video game. And to get onto the project, I submitted a demo, and it was a little bit electronic, and then also had acoustic instruments in it. And they're like, yeah, we like your stuff, but we want something totally electronic. Like, we want it more like techno, EDM, something like this. And they sent me a link, like a YouTube link, to this really soft kind of track. It was just like really mellow, really chill. And I was scratching my head. I'm like, man, I was like, this is really the kind of thing you want? And they're like, yeah, we want it. This is the kind of thing we want. And so I'm like, dang, this just does not fit a fighting game at all. And so I made a track, and I was really nervous to submit it to them because I felt like it had way more intensity and was way more upbeat than the temp track they sent me. And I submitted the track, and they're like, this is good, but this is like way too mellow, man. We need something that's like a lot more action-packed. Like, man, you sent me like the craziest temp track. So anyway, I made something way more like that I thought it should have been from originally, and they thought it was great. But they just didn't really know how to communicate what they wanted. And so having a sound spreadsheet is awesome. So what this is just pick a goal. Like, I'm going to listen to, I listen to music on Spotify anyway. I'm going to try to branch out, listen to some different channels and playlists, but try to listen to like, maybe add 3 or 5 songs to your spreadsheet a day. And you just, in Google Drive, open up a spreadsheet or whatever, and listen to 5 new songs, put the URL, what the song is called, who the artist is, just so you can find it in the future. But then the most important part is put some descriptors on there. Like, this song just really has like this sad, melancholy kind of feeling. You could put other descriptors on there, like the instrumentation. It's like this orchestra thing, or it's this cool, sad guitar thing. This is really bright and bubbly. It doesn't really matter the words that you use, as long as they mean something to you. And if you do this every day, pretty soon you'll just have this huge database of all these sounds and what they mean to you. Then when you, I guess I'm stepping on the toes of my next slide, but then when you go to work with a composer on a project that you're doing, you can say, I want something that's like really bubbly and like a big red bouncy ball. Composers hate hearing that kind of stuff because what big red bouncy ball might mean to you doesn't mean anything, or it might mean something totally different to me. Or like jazzy. As a composer and also as a guitar teacher, I'll have a student come and be like, yeah, I want to learn jazz. And I found that for some people, B.B. King, who's a blues guitar player, means jazz. And some people, Frank Sinatra means jazz. And some people, something totally different means jazz. And so different words mean different things to different people. But if you can say to your composer, yeah, I really want my music, I want to sound like this big red bouncy ball. And I'm not being goofy, like I've had people say that, I want this to sound like a big red bouncy ball. So I thought that was funny, so I'm using it. Someone said that to me once, and I don't know what they meant. But if then you can then send them several links, like here's what I mean, this is what big red bouncy ball means to me, then the composer can be like, oh, this is what they want. Okay, they want about this tempo. It looks like we're going to use about this instrumentation. It's going to be in a major key, and then the composer can translate what you want and really get what you want in the video instead of there being a lot of confusion. So that's one of my big suggestions, is start making some sort of database or spreadsheet where you can connect your words, your meanings to certain sounds, so that can be translated. Did you guys were you mostly talking about music or sound effects as well?
We haven't talked about sound effects yet.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure about this, so I just kind of put it in here for fun. But do I want to talk about it? Yeah, I can talk about it. Sound effects are obviously very important as well. I did music for a different game earlier this year. It was like a racing game, and I didn't do the sound for it. They didn't ask me, but looking back, I wish I would have, because they sent me like the promo video they put it up on Steam, and you can look it up. I think it's called Fast Travel or Fast Traveler, and I saw it. I sent them the music, and then they put the rest of the project together. And I watched the video, the promo video for it, and the sound effects were just so bad. They were not well done. They were not put in. They weren't mixed well. They weren't the great choices. So a couple of resources for having sound effects, for getting good sound effects, is soundly.com. It's a database. So if you get into making your own sounds, that's a great place to go, because it'll organize the sounds that you have in your computer, so you can type in like crowd, and it'll bring up all the crowd noises. But it also comes with a free database of sounds that you have access to. So if you need some ambiances or some footsteps or whatever, there's tons of free sounds through Soundly. It's a great resource that you should all be familiar with, because you're going to need to have some sort of sound effects in some of your projects at some point or another. The Sound Effects Bible, if you're getting more into sound effects, this is a killer book. I brought it. It's pretty much a standard in the world of sound effects, sound design, and all that. It's by this dude named Rick Veers. And what's neat about this book is a lot of people that do sound are like me. They're musicians, and then they also got into doing sound because they were interested in composing, and so they just like, yeah, I can do this sound too. But this guy actually went to film school. He graduated in, like film and directing and all that. And then he started really getting into doing sound for his own projects and got really good at it, and ended up just making a career out of creating sound. He has this company in Detroit, super successful. Really great resource to have if you want to dive deeper into creating your own sounds. And I'm not going to talk about those other things, but they're up here on the thing. As you're working in your audio software in, what is it, Adobe? Final Cut Pro. Using reversing audio, reverb, pitch shift, time stretching, that'll get you so many different kinds of sounds. Especially if you're doing like a fiction or a fantasy thing, you need to make like laser sounds or whatever. Those are great tools. Reference tracks, I think I'm going to talk about those later. Okay, next thing, working with a composer. I have a fun little movie for us to watch. See if there's sound. Speaking of bad sound quality. Okay, that was kind of hard to hear. But she said, which way do I go? And he said, well, where are you trying to go? I don't know. Well, then it doesn't matter which way you go. So kind of the same thing. Going back to my video game developer friends, they weren't super clear on the music that they wanted. And so it took a lot more back and forth to get the result they wanted, because they didn't really know where they wanted to go. So the more clear you are on what you want, the better result you can get from people. And that, that goes with anything, but also with music. So that's super important. And so going back to the sound spreadsheet idea, that can be very helpful for helping you to get clear. So it can help you communicate with the composer clearly, but it can also help you start to think about sound more and maybe notice sound more when you're watching. Because as a musician, I'm very auditory, and I'm always thinking about the music. I remember when I was in college and I went and saw the Alice in Wonderland movie. The whole time I was just like, I got out of the movie and I was like, people were like, did you like the movie? And I was like, oh, the movie? Yeah, I think the movie was good, but oh man, Danny Elfman did a killer job on that soundtrack. I loved it. And that was like all I could think about the whole time. And then you guys, I'm assuming, are very visual and really concerned with the visuals and everything. And so by doing this, the spreadsheet thing, that can just get you thinking about the music a little bit more, thinking about what you like and what you don't like, and it'll just help you to be a little bit more clear when you go to your creative film and you're like, yeah, I want this kind of thing. And it'll also help you to create reference tracks or temp tracks. Do you guys know what that is? You talked, no, yes, no, okay. So it's just when you like, so this mobile game I'm working on right now, they sent me the game and they said, we want it to sound, we want this kind of a feel. And they sent me like 3 tracks of this guy that recorded his own African hand percussion and marimbas and stuff. And so they're like, this is the kind of thing we want. So I had some tracks to go off of, and then I built my own soundtrack for the game based off of that instrument palette and that, just based off of that style. So a temp track is something when you're working with a composer, you'll submit your film and you'll put some music with it to show them kind of what you're looking for. So, and yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I've heard composers that say they don't like temp tracks because, especially when like when temp tracks that I'm used to using actually use it in the video, right? And they cut to the beat. And then that feels like it, like some composers, like it doesn't give me the flexibility that I want to do it my way because I feel like I have to follow this too closely. How do you feel? What's your
Like when you're temp track,
yeah,
like
so I've heard people say I prefer to have the video by itself with no temp track so that I'm not like and obviously if you're trying to go for a specific feel it's really helpful, but like some composers say that so that I can be really creative and really open, so I'm not as tied down to one
gotcha.
kind of thing. But
I could definitely see that. I love them though.
okay.
There's a great book on writing. If you're into like writing stories at all, which I would hope that many of us are, because whether it's with audio or visuals, we're telling stories. There's a great book by Stephen King called On Writing. It's really awesome, a really good book if you enjoy that kind of thing, fiction writing and stuff. It's like a workbook. But in there he gives this example, and I'm like, oh my goodness, that it spoke so true to at least how it is for me as a film composer. He said, when you're telling a story, you're not like conjuring up this story. You want to start with some sort of what if statement. What if vampires invaded modern day Salem, Massachusetts in the 1990s? And then what he said from there, so you start with your what if statement, and then you're just uncovering the story. You're more of like a, I was going to say philanthropist. You're more of they dig up dinosaur bones. It starts with a P. Paleontologist, thank you. Not a philanthropist. A paleontologist, and you're uncovering the dinosaur bones. So for me as a composer, what I like to get a temp track so I know what they're looking for, but usually I'll watch the film silent first, without any kind of sound or influence, and I'll come up with some tempos that I like. I'll write down like moods, and especially if the director's giving me like moods or different things beforehand. I'll write down potential instrumentations. I might jot down some actual like musical phrases or ideas that I have. And then I'll listen to their temp track so I know kind of what they're looking for. But then from there, I'm just watching the video a bunch. I'm kind of jamming more or less. I'm putting in some different ideas. And basically what I'm doing is I'm digging around until I find that little nub, like, oh, I think this is something. And I'm like, oh, it is. It's just a rock, okay. Oh, this is something. And then I start to uncover. I'm like, oh, that looks like an elbow joint or whatever. Oh, look, we got a hip. And then the music starts to come together, and it's super exciting. So I like having the temp track because it can give me an idea of what they're looking for, and helps with my archaeological dig. Yeah, good question. I think that's all. When you're talking with the composer in like a spotting session or whenever you're talking with them, being as detailed as possible about how you want the viewer to feel during the scene is really important. So as emotionally descriptive as you can get, the better. So what is your emotional vision for the project? Ideal situations for a composer is to have a vision and direction from the director, but also have the freedom to bring in their own ideas and solutions. Kind of like, just like Matthew's story at the beginning where, they're like, I don't think this red is working. The back and forth is really helpful for coming out with a really great product. Next. Okay, this one I'll just touch on real quick. I don't know what you guys talked about, but stems. Do you guys know what stems are? Did you talk about that at all? Okay, so a stem is basically just like an audio track. Like let's say I'm making a piece of music, I might record the drums and the bass. I'll record the drums on one track and the bass on another track and the guitar on another track, and then I'll bounce that down into one single like final mix track, and that might be the thing that I send to the director. So that would be a music stem. So when you're doing sound, I feel like a good practice. I haven't been on the filmmaker side, but I know that this is something that's recommended. Is having, instead of having one flattened mix where everything's all in one audio file, your dialogue, your music, your sound effects, it's a good idea to put them in 3 separate stems. So you have all of your, once you've like, you're ready to like make it a final product, you want to have at least 3 audio files synced along with your picture. You want to have the dialogue, you want to have the sound effects, and you want to have the music. And that allows you to then mix the levels, which I'll talk about in a second. I think I'm almost out of time, or probably am out of time. Oh, I am, darn it. Okay, I'll wrap it up. But it also allows you to make changes later. Like let's say you get hired to do an advertising video for a local company. So you get this project here locally, and you make it, you make the commercial, and they're doing it online. It's, they sell hammocks online or something, I don't know. And you do the video for them, and then they're like, man, we're really actually making a lot of sales in Japan. People love our hammocks in Japan. We don't know what's going on. So we need to we're going to have a voice person come in, and they're going to do a voiceover of the same script in Japanese. Well, if you have a flattened mix where everything is all together, that's going to be a real pain to work with. You're going to have to go in and try to find your old session file or whatever. But if you have things in 3 different tracks, you just go in and you delete the dialogue stem. You have the person record in Japanese. You put the dialogue stem, the sound effects, and the music is already there. You don't have to touch it. It's good to go. So that's a good way. And then by mix, I mean, I'm just talking about the process where you're adjusting the levels and getting everything to sound even and nice. One more thing I want to say real quick about that final stage, kind of like the post-production audio stage. So you've got all your dialogue, you've got all your sound, you've got all your music, and you just want to make it sound good inside of a film. So you're adjusting levels, maybe panning things. A really amazing thing to have is reference tracks or reference material. And this can really be at any stage of the game, but maybe you import like a movie scene into your actual session file, and you play your mix, and then you play this scene that you really like, and you're like, oh, my music's too loud compared to this reference piece of material. And then you bring the music down, and you're like, oh, dang, I can hear that my footsteps are too loud. And you bring those down, or oh, my dialogue's not loud enough. And so if you're constantly A-Bing, going back and forth between what you're doing and what this professional scene is doing, then that really, is that me? Oh, then that really, then that can really help to improve the quality of your output. So those are a couple quick tips there. One more thing I wanted to say real quick is that these are just general pieces of advice that I have. So I I've been teaching guitar at universities since I graduated from college, but I've really been really working hard on building my scoring business because that's what I really love and that's where my passion is. And so some things that have helped me to build my business that I think apply to anyone, but especially anyone in the creative field, is that I think it's really important to start your career now. When I tell people that I like compose for video games and film and stuff, they get excited. I work with a lot of college students in different, but like, teaching up here and in different places. And so I'll talk to people and they'll be like, oh, I'm doing computer programming. I want to be a game developer one day. That's super exciting. I want to talk to you about this. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. There's actually this killer networking opportunity happening next week. We're like, oh, things are getting really busy. We're getting close to finals. I can't go to it, but yeah, that's cool. And so I think having a really important mindset shift to have that I wish I had when I was a student is that I'm a professional right now. I'm a professional that's taking classes. I'm not a student that's one day going to be a pro filmmaker. I'm a professional filmmaker right now that's taking classes. And then I think that mental shift can really affect how you approach things, can affect your drive, and all that. So that's something that I think is a good thing to do. Another thing that I've done that's been so helpful is I'll call pros and I'll ask questions. So I talked to, I can't remember his name. His last name is Workman, but he's started up like most of the film festivals here in Utah. He's like a big player in the film scene here in Utah. And I just called him up. I got his name from another filmmaker that I talked to. And I think maybe I sent him an email first. And I was like, hey, my name's Tyson. My dream is to work with filmmakers and animators. I would love to call you up sometime and just pick your brain about the industry. I don't know the industry super well here in Utah or whatever it is. I'd love to just pick your brain sometime. And most people that are professionals working in the industry, especially in the creative field, are there because they're nice people. They're easy to talk to. They get along with most people. You don't find a lot of jerks in like the professional world because no one wants to work with them. And so a lot of these people are incredibly nice. And this dude gave me so much good advice, as did the filmmaker that I talked to before him that referred me to him. I've gotten to know so many people and gotten so many great ideas and tips, more than I have time to like implement at any given time, so I have to like circulate through them. But I've made so many awesome connections, and I'm not like trying to get jobs from them. I'm not like doing this slide underhanded thing where I'm like, hey, you should hire me. But oftentimes they will ask me to send them a demo reel and I make a friend, and it's been awesome. So that's something else I recommend doing starting today. Going on like the Utah Film Commission website, talking to pros, find people that are doing what you want to do, call them up. I've talked with the, has anyone heard of Ninjago, the kid Lego show? I talked to the composer that did that. I just spent a lot of time one night like stalking him on the internet and found his phone number or his email. Emailed him. He talked with me. Super nice guy. Super helpful. So you'll be surprised at the people you'll meet. It's really fun. Be driven. Read books. I have some book recommendations up here. First day of class in one of my classes, the guy wrote music and then business really big. Focus on the business side of things if you're taking this advice. A lot of times we focus on the art and not enough on the business, and you also need to be thinking business-minded. And then don't give up. You're not going away. The thing that's helped me through my creative business is I just have the mindset that even if I make mistakes or whatever, it doesn't really matter because I am not going away. This is what I want to do. I'm going to do it. It's going to happen. I want it to happen sooner than later, or I want this, I want to reach this goal sooner than later, but it doesn't matter because I'm not giving up. I'm not going away. I'm going to be the last man standing doing this. And those have been some helpful mindsets. And I think that's all I have to say. So thank you, everybody. Oh, I have one more thing to say. If you have any questions or you want to bounce some audio off me or get more clarification on things, please contact me. Give me a call or a text or email me or whatever. I'm totally open to talking to you guys. So do we have time for questions?
Yeah,
okay.
Anybody want to ask questions, feel free. And could you repeat them so that
Yeah.
hear them?
Yes.
What would be some reasons that you would seek out a composer rather than working with someone
Working with a composer, it just depends on the project. If you're in broadcast media, so if you're in like film or not film, if you're in TV or advertising, those industries typically use sync or licensing music, pre-recorded music. So unless it's like Stranger Things, they have guys that compose just for that. But if, like most reality shows, A&E, History Channel, Pickers, those kind of shows, all those shows are using library music, and usually it's because the deadlines are so tight that they got to go online real quick, and they just got to pick something. I had a guitar student that had his own hunting show sponsored by Under Armour, and I was like, dude, let me compose for it. And he's like, no, I just go online, so I never got anything out of that. And then usually video game film, there's a little bit, the time crunch isn't as insane, and there's time to plan. And so usually they'll get a composer.
Oh, can I chime in on
Yeah, yeah.
I would say one thing that I've noticed, because I've used a lot of like those websites, right, using music libraries and stuff. And one thing that I've noticed is that I can get really good music, and I can time it well, cut to the beat of the music that already exists. But one thing you can't have, if you have a longer project and you want like themes or ideas that repeat over and over again, or you're doing a series of videos and you want some musical theme to come up every time, or a musical theme to come up for a certain character, like they do in Lord of the Rings and other movies, you can't do that with that music.
Right.
That's one thing.
Yeah, that's a good one too. And the other thing I was going to say goes along with that in that it's just not as customizable. So maybe it's not going to fit your scene perfectly, or if it's a longer project, there might not be as much cohesive. It might not be as cohesive. And I think that's probably another reason why it's not used as much in film, but is fine in advertising because those are only 30 seconds long. I don't know, it's like you're working on some Lord of the Rings movie or something, and someone just delivers costumes, like, here's the only costumes we have, this is what you've got to use for the movie. They might fit the actors and actresses pretty well. It might not fit exactly like your storyline, but it's like close enough, so we'll just go for it. But working with a composer, you are getting exactly what you're looking for, or hopefully, you're able to go back and forth with them and collaborate, and you're like, I really like this, but can we just change this aspect of it? And so you can just get a little bit more creative and collaborative with it. And as far as composers go, you can hire a composer, and obviously I advocate for that. But there's also tons of people, just like there's tons of filmmakers and tons of artists that are just dying to do something, and they'll do it for free. So if you can usually find those kind of people too. Good question. Does that help? Okay. Other questions? Yes.
So I'm working on a web series right now. I'm writing it. But in the future, how much does that generally cost to have a composer do music?
Well, if you have 2 hours of film, you're probably not going to get 2 hours of music because you don't want music in everything. But that's a great question. I spent a lot of time when I was getting started, like researching this, like, oh man, how much should I charge? But at the professional level, well, just when you're paying composers, what most people in the industry recommend is if you're just getting started, you haven't really done any projects before or many, you should charge $250 per finished minute of music. And if you're getting just like a pro who's done it a bunch, they've got tons of things under their belt, they're going to charge more like $1,000 to $1,500 per finished minute of music. And so you could get anything in that gamut. Any other questions?
What descriptive word, what's an example of the best kind of description you've gotten from filmmakers that are like, hey, I want music to not like a red bouncy ball, but I don't know.
Oh yeah, I called this one guy and was talking with him. So this wasn't for a project, but he was like, actually I don't remember the descriptive word he used, so maybe this isn't a great answer. But he was like, yeah, I don't remember. He said, I use a lot of emotional rock in my music or something. You know, bands like this and that. And so I wrote down the bands and I listened to it and I was like, oh, that descriptive word to him equates to this for me. So always having something that they can refer to has been so helpful. Other things, yeah, I don't know. I found mostly that just having some sort of reference is the most helpful because I found that there's so much. Well, the activity that I was going to do that I totally forgot to do with my flash drive is I was going to play 3 different 15-second music cues. I was going to have everyone write down their own descriptive words, and then we were going to compare them just to see how different of responses we can get. I totally forgot to do it. Not like I had time anyway. But yeah, I'm trying to think of great descriptive words.
Like you said, when people use emotional.
Yeah. Yeah. I want this. I want the, this is going to be like a slow, sad kind of scene. There's not really any talking in this or anything, and so the music's really got to tell the story. And then they'll usually describing the film, okay, this scene, this car's backing out and driving down the road, that's all you see. But they just found out that their son OD'd, and they're driving to the hospital. And so we just want it to feel really slow and sad. And then that'll give me, or these people are on their way to the fun park. And so we want to get people really excited in anticipation because there's going to be this big climactic event once the kid gets to his birthday party. So we want it to build excitement and build intensity a little bit. So having description, I like hearing the story of the thing, and then just little things like that of how they want people to feel.
What DAW do you use?
Logic.
And then is there any class here on campus where if you want to learn more about that that you can take, or does do not have a class?
Yeah, they don't really have that I know of. I don't think they have a class. I have guitar students that have mentioned that they're way into that thing, and I'm like, oh, that's great. That's what I do. And so they'll bring in we'll spend some of our time doing guitar, and then they'll bring in their laptop, and I'll help them with production and stuff. But as far as the music program goes, it's much more of an emphasis on education and performance. They don't really do or have this kind of thing, unfortunately. Yes.
Actually, a comment for you. The closest thing that I found on campus is actually the radio production class and the Berlin broadcast.
Mm.
They're still go through auditions and stuff. Probably closest to
Any other questions?
Okay, thank
Awesome.
you so much for coming.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, share these slides with me. I'll get them.
Okay, yeah, I'll share this stuff, and then I need to eject this flash drive I forgot to use.